Good afternoon and welcome to this week's reading. This week, I decided to kind of explore the idea of when your paths intersect with the path of others, what helps you meet others without either path having to consume, control, or redirect the other. It's definitely an interesting area to explore because when I was looking at this question, I started to think back to all the different times when I had the opportunity to, kind of walk the same path as others and get involved in collaborations. And one of the things that I found was, I have been on both sides of this question, right? I have found that this idea of collaboration can be a very fine-edged sword to kind of walk on at times, because I think there are many reasons why we get challenged when we walk with other people along their path. From my experience, for instance, I know that when I am so deeply in love with an idea that I can push and coerce and pretty much browbeat other people into submission. And instead of it being a collaboration, it basically becomes, this is my idea and this is what we're going to do, to the loss of all others. And it's really hard when you're in that kind of position of being so in love with your idea to hear what other people have to say, because when you have it and it's fully formed in your head and you know exactly where you're going, anybody that you meet along the way, you just basically kind of drag them along. And it's one of the reasons why I always am nervous about collaborating with other people, because of having had this history. And there's just something in the way that I'm designed that when I see something and I get involved with it, I want to make sure that it's perfect. So as a recovering perfectionist, it definitely is something to kind of keep in mind. The other reason I also struggle with collaboration is the darker side or the harder side for people is when you lack your own worth, or you lack your own value, or maybe you really lack the ability to love yourself. It's very easy to get sucked into someone else's project because of the lack of confidence, because of the lack of courage to speak up. It's so easy to slide into the background and to just allow someone else's idea to just gobble us up whole. And so that's kind of the sides, the extremes of the sides. If you're lucky enough to be involved in a collaborative project where everyone is treated equally and everybody has equal say, I have been involved in those as well. They really have the power to transform everybody involved. So when your path connects with others, we're given a gift. Each encounter tells us something about ourselves. It shows us how we have grown. It shows us where we may still need to grow. And, like we can see in us how we interact with each other. There's always something to learn about ourselves during these interactions. So when we allow for dialogue between us, space to share ideas, and the willingness to be present and to listen, we open the doorway for healthy and mutual beneficial partnerships and collaborative masterminds to emerge organically. And I think that's really when people think of true collaboration, everyone has their moment to be a bit of a leader. Everyone has a moment to kind of guide, and then they step back. It's a flow, right? It's a dance where people kind of move in and out of these roles. So when I look back on the many meetings and partings I've had in my life, I found that the ones where there was equal participation, equal respect, and equal space granted, those were the ones that brought out the best experiences and, above all, the best results for everybody involved. And those are the ones that, even though I have struggled with collaborative work in the past, I'm much better at it now, but it's because of those ones where I have had such a truly wonderful experience in a collaboration that it makes me still willing to take part and to join with other people when they cross my path. So the purpose for today's reading, after that nice long introduction, is to hold space for you to explore the ways meeting and interacting with others shifts and shapes everyone's journey. Because the thing we have to remember is that even though we get something out of it, everybody that we interact with will also get something out of it. So the guiding question, which is what I'm going to start shuffling into the cards now, is how do you meet another path while remaining fully present on your own? So how do you meet another path while remaining fully present on your own? And that can be tricky on both sides of the equation. Okay, shuffling my cards today by the looks of it. All right, so let's pick our cards. Get them out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, our first question that we're going to be looking at asks, what comes forward when you first encounter the path of others? And so this can be anything, right? Like, so when you meet someone along your path and they come into, like, what is it that comes forward? What is the first thing, that we kind of notice? And here we have the Six of Wands. And the Six of Wands is a very interesting thing because what happens is when, we meet these people, one of the things that we're looking at is how does that make us feel, right? The Six of Wands is all about victory. It's about triumphing and it's about changing. So kind of goes back to that question that I had in the introduction of like when you meet people and the way that you meet people helps you to ask, how have I grown? Or where do I still have place to grow? That's really kind of the energy of the Six of Wands is coming in and saying, look at this person coming into your life is showing you how much you've grown for the capacity to have this person enter your life. Because there's certain lessons, there's certain events, there's certain experiences that we all need to go through. There's changes that we need to happen. We need to understand that we can overcome adversity, we can overcome struggle, and we can become someone who has the courage and the confidence to move forward bravely. And every person that we meet kind of asks that question. Is this person going to be part of the journey that allows you to move forward? Is this person going to highlight for you an area where you're still struggling, an area where you might still need to have support, where you might still need to have that collaborative conversation to be able to find a way to overcome the current difficulty or the current struggle that you have on your plate? After that, we look at the second card, which asks, what do you feel when their path crosses yours? And this is when somebody comes into our life, be it physically into our life, be it through online groups, be it through online conversations, there is going to be a gut reaction. And the more we can tune into our gut reactions, the more we can understand the role that the person coming into our life has. There's a saying that I think I've used a few times before, but I really like it, right? Like when people come into our lives, they're there for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And that initial gut reaction that we have tells us right away the reason why people are coming into our lives. And so these are the things to kind of pay attention to and build your own vocabulary, build your own practice around why these people are coming into your lives. And isn't it interesting that we have the devil coming up? So first, being a major arcana, this is definitely kind of tying into, we really need to tune into what our body is feeling anytime someone comes into our lives. And keep in mind that somebody can be a revolving door, a revolving character in your play of your life, and they can come in many, many times. And every time they come in, you have to tune into that, because the idea of the devil in this position is when somebody crosses into your life, when they're there, if you feel icky in any way, then this is a person that really is only here to highlight an area of resistance, an area of growth, an area of something that you need to come to terms with, that you need to come to grips with, because the devil will highlight the areas where we're kind of neglecting ourselves, where we're giving into temptation, we're allowing like obsessions or addictions to come forward. And I think, I've seen it starting to kind of have conversations around it, but the idea of addictions, needs to be expanded beyond just substances and alcohol and cigarettes and stuff, right? People can be addicted to absolutely anything. And so much of where we are right now has us hooked on that dopamine hit of what's the next comment I'm going to get from somebody? What's the next um, thing that's going to pop up in my feeds and my recommended and all this kind of stuff. And so it's important for us to be paying attention to the people that are coming into our lives that have that impact on us, right? So our body's going to have that initial reaction of a shiver, of, you know, something coming up. Or when they come in, there's going to be a relaxing, there's going to be a breath. And it happens so quickly that most of the time the brain doesn't catch it. And so to have a practice where we're paying attention when somebody says something to us, when you go to say your social media, or you go to a group conversation, or you're on a video call, or you're on a phone call, or you're just talking to somebody, and you have that instant kind of second of feeling like really queasy. Or when you think about, oh, I have to have a video call with so and so later today, and you just go, oh, right? These are people that you really need to stay grounded in who you are and stay present with who you are, because the longer that they're in your lives, the more, I don't want to go so far as to say the more toxic they will become, but the more it will erode your sense of self, right? Because these are also people that can be those ones, you call them like the car used car salesman, or the snake oil, right? Like these are the people, they're like telemarketers, where as soon as you pick up the phone and they just start going and they don't give anybody a chance to say anything, right? Like these types of people, when you're looking at what you're paying attention and you're tuning into, are the people that make you feel less, right? That's what the devil card is coming in when we're looking at how different people feel when they cross our path. So when you encounter someone that for whatever reason they make you feel less, they are there for a reason, right? They will never become a season or a lifetime person for you. And so the reason people, it's best to, share what is needing to be shared, and the rest is just stick to your own path and keep going. And then 3 asks, what do you notice about the paths you both walk? And I really had this great idea in my head when I was writing this question, because I'm like, so if I'm walking a dirt path and someone comes in my life and they're on like a super highway, right? They're going really fast, they're all sleek, they're all nice and novel and new, and I'm on my dirt path. Now, I might be on my dirt path because this is a time where maybe I'm recovering from burnout, or maybe I just want to take things slow, or maybe I just want to, go at a different pace. And I've had times where I've been on that super highway, and there's nothing wrong with the dirt path or the superhighway. It's just understanding that the roads and the paths that people are on are an indication of where they are in their lives. And so if you want to connect with somebody that's on a superhighway when you're on a dirt path, you have to be also willing to accept the consequences of, joining and paralleling your path with theirs for the while that you're going to be on. So here we have the 3 of Wands. And I really like having the 3 of Wands here, because the 3 of Wands is really kind of coming forward and saying, when you're looking at the paths of the people that are crossing into your life, one of the things you want to be asking yourself is, what is the risk that I'm going to take if I join my path to walk beside them? Or in the case of a dirt road versus a superhighway, to run, like kind of latch on to the back of their car so you can just kind of be dragged along. And that's another thing, right? Like, so just the way that kind of came out of being dragged along, right? If you're being dragged along behind somebody else, chances are it's a position that you're being put into, as opposed to one that you're willingly participating in. And so it's really important. And what I really like about this question is, it's really important first to understand your path, right? Why are you on the path that you're on right now? What is the path that you're on now offering you? What is it that you're getting out of it? Because sometimes we might be on that dirt path for a really long time and it's become complacent. And so when the speeding car comes by and asks, hey, you want to come along? it's an indication that maybe it's time for us to take a risk as well, right? So the risk that the Three of Wands is asking us to take is never saying it's good or bad. What it's saying is that there is a risk on the when someone crosses your path, there is always a risk, and therefore there's always a choice. And the choice that you're granted at this position is you can stay here like this guy on the edge of the cliff, watching the big flying ship and watching the sea and the ocean, and just sit there and say, yeah, this is where I am right now, and I'm good with that. Or you can take the risk to kind of motion to this ship up here to say, hey, I'm down here, I want to go with you, right? Or do you want to come down? Because sometimes it's not about joining up with someone else's path, right? Sometimes the risk is having the confidence and the courage to say, hey, do you want to slow down and walk with me for a while as well? Because there's this idea, I think, that we're constantly trying to catch up to others, when if we flip it around and say, instead of trying to catch up to you, why don't you slow down to meet me? And I think that comes a lot from my teaching background of having to really make sure that everyone is giving equal opportunity and has an entry point into everything that's being done. So now that takes us to our fourth question. And the fourth question is, what will help you bridge the paths? So this is one of those interesting things. So if you got the dirt highway and the super speed highway, right? How do you bridge those? Because they really do live in two different worlds, and there's two different mindsets, and there's two different things that are going on with all of those. So how is it that you can bridge those so that everyone is able to communicate and do whatever needs to be done in order for people to kind of stay on the same page? Because if you have the superhighway going off and this is the tortoise and the hare kind of thing, right? So what we have here is the Five of Cups. Now, this is really interesting because what I love about the Five of Cups showing up here in regards to what will help you build the path is, does the path even need to be built, right? So looking at just the fact that this is a 5 card, it is saying that this is a choice card. It is a pivotal moment of the path. The path is either going to be made or it's going to be broken, in the sense of the two paths connecting. And so when the Five of Cups comes up, it's asking, do you have the capacity right now to make a bridge to connect to somebody else? Because cups are emotional. And I will also add that this is in the 4th position, which is the West and is the emotional position. It's really emphasizing the feelings, the intuitiveness, the need for being in a community or needing to kind of connect with other people. And it's really, really important for us to remember that sometimes we're not the ones to build the bridge, right? When you look at her, she's feeling lost. She's feeling very, kind of in her own head, in her own emotions. And sometimes, what helps build the bridges are the other people. Sometimes, like asking somebody to slow down to meet us where we are, sometimes the bridge between people needs to be that the other person needs to understand that we may not have the capacity to build a bridge, even to meet them halfway, and that other people need to build a bridge to come to meet us. And so this also gives us the opportunity to let go of the guilt and shame, right? Because the Five of Cups can carry a lot of guilt and shame when we think that we lack the capacity that others have. And because we're using the metaphor of like the dirt road and the superhighway, this could be the person that's on the dirt road going, I just can't keep up. I just don't know what to do. Could also be the person on the superhighway who's like, I just go so fast that nobody can keep up with me. And what's wrong with me that, I can't find the right people to kind of keep up with me. So it's really, really important to remember that sometimes it is on other people to reach out to us, right? Like I kind of look at this as when you have a friend and the only time you talk to that friend is if you text them, if you message them, if you phone them. And if you stopped phoning them, say for about a week or a month, they would never reach back out, right? That's that kind of situation is I'm giving, and no one is giving back. And again, it goes back to the reason, season, and our devil guy over here. Because if you're constantly reaching out, if you're constantly giving, if you're constantly there for other people, you will burn yourself out. You will become so completely depleted, and it feeds into this dependency idea and you become addicted to reaching out to somebody just to get some kind of notice that you're still around, you're not invisible, right? It just reminds me of that Buffy episode where the student who was ignored just eventually turned invisible. And that's kind of the energy that's here, is that we need to stop giving so much of ourselves away and allow other people to build bridges to us, or to admit, that the bridges that we may have built to other people's paths, they've outlived their time and it's time for them to come down. And so then that leads us to, what do you notice about the languages you both speak? And this is tied into the path that you're walking, right? Because sometimes you can be walking very similar paths and be speaking very different languages. Or you could be on very, very different paths and speak the same language. So it's really interesting. And here we have the Two of Pentacles. And I love that we end with the Two of Pentacles as a balancing card, but also as a grounding card, as an earth card, right? We're being asked to pay attention to what's physically being said. And so it's less about, can I understand their words? Can I understand what they're trying to get across? And more, can I understand their activities, right? So when you think about people learning someone else's language, a lot of times when you're learning someone else's language and they're right there in front of you, they will be doing gestures, right? So when you watch like any sci-fi movie or any movie where somebody goes into a different culture, different region, right? And they're offering them food, they'll go food, food, right? And they'll do the gesture. And this is what this is asking as well, right? It's saying, how are you physically trying to get your message across to someone? And are you watching the physicalness of what they're doing? So when you see somebody coming in, for instance, and you're having that conversation, and maybe they're like going, oh, hey, this person, I can see how I've grown since the last time I had somebody come in my life like this, although I'm still kind of not feeling too great about them here. So maybe that's an indication there's some place for me to grow still. But maybe I need to take a bit of a risk and see what's going on. So even if they make me feel a bit uncomfortable, I might kind of walk with them a little bit to see, what's the risk? What is it? And am I willing to take it? And then, seeing, are they willing to reciprocate and to put a hand out for me and to meet me? And in that whole exchange is what they're saying and what they're physically doing the same thing, right? Because you can have somebody that sits there and tells you, oh, you're so wonderful, you're so great, you're so, and they have like a deadpan face, right? So it's really, really important, especially when you're dealing with people in online communities, right? Like to have some way to kind of have a physical interaction, whether it be a Zoom call or other kind of video calls or something like that. When you're getting close to people and you're looking at, am I going to walk this path with this person? It's really important to be able to have an opportunity to meet them face to face, literally, so that you can see whether what they're doing is really matching up. Also to see if, it reminds me of dating apps, right? Where you look at a person's profile and then you kind of get an opportunity to meet them. You're like going, you are nothing like what your profile was, right? So it's that idea of, is the person that's there, that's coming and meeting you on your path, is it really the same person that you think it is? And the only way that you can do that is to spend time feeling into yourself, right? So how did they make you feel? What do they remind you of? Do they remind you of the times that you were successful, where you were triumphant, or do they remind you of the times where you failed? Do they make you want to be someone better, or do they really pull on your strings and pull you in based on, I can do this for you to make it better for you? This is the biggest one, because I believe this is the only major card that we have. So this whole thing about when you're getting to meeting other people is really, are they going to be there to help support you to make you become someone better, or are they really just there for themselves, right? Because the devil is really a selfish person that is there, that wants to get everything that they can from you and bleed you dry, basically, and then leave you on the side of the road. And then, like, are these people encouraging you to take risks that are going to allow you to step out of your comfort zone without ending up that you're in such a terrible state where you've put yourself at like a physical risk kind of thing, right? And then from there, it's remembering that we're not the ones that always have to reach out. The people that we meet along our path, if there's an offer or something, it's not always having to come from us. And it's not always up to us to have to be building the bridges and building the systems and building everything. And if we fall short or if we get sucked into their world, right, it becomes very hard for us to stay grounded. And that's why it's really, really important to be paying attention to what the people are actually doing versus so much what they are actually saying. So I hope you enjoyed this reading. I hope that you got some kind of clarity on maybe some of the paths that you've found coming into your life right now. I look forward to next week's reading when we look at some other kind of topic. But in the meantime, I wish you all the best, and I will see you around the webs. Take care.